support and artistic groups. Thank you very much.
Thanks everybody for coming. I'm just going to read a little bit of my story. I won't read too much because I always cry. And I'm sure you don't want to see that today. So, leaving South Australia had been the catalyst to being my journey in finding myself. Prior to that, my emotions had been jostled and directed by where I was physically. For example, if I drove to Renelle, I had to go through Brighton and would have to avoid certain roads in order not to be re-traumatised by the memories of the atrocities that occurred when I was living there. Once I'd left where all the triggers were and had discovered a bit about who I was and what made me tick, it was safer to revisit painful memories and accept them as a part of who I am. This was a great comfort. I could visit the memories safely, questioning and reasoning out my feelings and how they affected my beliefs. I was becoming cranky about the fact that I had questions and didn't know where to turn to find more answers. I was not a brave, daring person. I was someone dealing with anxiety and a somewhat fucked up attitude. I saw myself as someone just getting by. And I'm just going to leave it at that. I didn't know Ted Mulligan was sick, so the first thing I saw was on Facebook. Was the link to the news story that he died, and I tell you that it really got to me because I had no idea that he was even sick. I was the third person to tell my story to Ted, and I did that over 2 consecutive days, and he was a really good guy, and I think that a lot of good things have come out of it, and I'm really, really glad that I've had the opportunity to write my story in this book. I actually will not ever have any court proceedings because of how things have panned out with my story, which has been quite upsetting. But it's turned out really good. The story has been the thing that's been the biggest help, and I think a lot more people need to listen to what's happened to people like me and other people here to stop the cycle of abuse that's still occurring today. Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much. And I'm just wondering if we could all express our thanks to everybody who's out the front here and those of you that are out there too that have been through these experiences. Thank you very much. The manner in which we have organised today's activity is about placing the most important people first and leaving the less important issues last. My wife, Deirdre Michelle, and I are the founders of People's Voice Publishing. Recipes for Survival is the first book we have published. It is also the last book we have published. But won't be the last book we ever publish. We have at least 4 books which will be published next year. Today is not the launch of People's Voice Publishing. This will be given a different date sometime next year. There is a lot to be done before we can fully launch this enterprise. However, it is important to understand the principle behind People's Voice Publishing to understand how Recipes for Survival came about. Last year we launched Women Journeying with Spirit through a different publisher. This was a compilation of stories about women's experiences of spirituality in all its forms. This provided women an opportunity to express these journeys by telling their stories. My work as a social worker has meant that I hear people's stories every day, and I know that from these stories emerges a remarkable sense of survival and resilience. To help people better understand the impact of their stories, it is sometimes helpful to have it expressed. People's Voice Publishing is designed to give people the means in which they can tell their story and have it heard and understood. Deirdre is a care leaver and a collector of stories. Collecting a range of stories from care leavers seems to be a good place to begin for People's Voice publishing journey. This book is a remarkable collection of stories and reflections from a vast cross-section of the community. They are stories of sadness, strength, wisdom, power, integrity, fear and love. They reflect a variety of experiences. Some will make you laugh, others will cause a tear to fall. What you will have when you finish reading this book is wide-ranging understanding of the state care system, its impact on children and how they grew into adulthood. A good friend and one of the most compassionate and reflective men I have ever met, Richard Hill, wrote the foreword to Recipes. Richard was going to be here today, but was able to because he's focusing on another work that he's launching at the moment. I'd like to thank Richard for his wonderful reflections on what this book offers. I'd like to thank Deirdre for the wonderful way in which you have edited and compiled this book. I know how much time it has consumed. Getting those bloody page numbers right was a challenge. I heard all about that. I'd also like to thank, of course, the other editor, Priscilla Taylor, for the enthusiasm she has shown and for chasing down many of the writers featured in this book. Priscilla, without your enthusiasm and persistence, this book would never have been completed. Finally, I'd like to thank those who have made all of this possible, the 16 contributors to this book. We acknowledge the courage it has taken to present your story in this way, to have them publicly displayed. Your contribution gives us a greater insight into the conditions in which you spent your childhood. We also discover how you survived. We are saddened by those who didn't, but we are heartened by the fact that you have. We want you and those who also had similar experiences to know that we love you and we admire you. Now, that's really the end of the service. It's all like I'm a minister. Anyway, you're now invited to have something to eat and drink, to talk to the writers who will be available to sign copies, and of course to buy as many books as you can. And we accept any form of cheque. So feel free. We have now this is the publicity bit. We have special offers. You can all get excited about this.